Hello and welcome to the Ambitious Woman of Color podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Lynn Rojas. Today, we're talking about the money story quietly shaping the careers and financial decisions of first-gen women of color and how so many of us are earning more than ever while still feeling behind. My guest is Andrea Ramos from Building Gen Wealth, a financial educator helping first-gen women of color move beyond just saving money and start building real wealth through investing in financial strategy. In this conversation, we're breaking down how money trauma shows up in our careers, why so many women of color struggle to ask for more even when we've earned it, and why career is one of the most powerful financial tools. If you ever felt stuck between playing it safe and wanting more, this episode's for you. Let's dive in. Hello, Andrea. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. And this is like something new, the whole podcast swap and being in your audience and you're coming in my audience. So this is great. And it's the first time that, you're coming to my podcast. So I would love for you to take the time to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Andrea. I am a money coach for first gen women of color, first gen Latinas who are kind of in a place in their life where, money is coming in, but they don't really know how to use it specifically or strategically to build wealth. Maybe they're saving a little, maybe they're, paying off debt, but there's no really purpose to their paychecks and they don't have the tools to figure out like, hey, if I want to retire 10 years earlier, if I want to have, security if anything happens, like what do I actually do with every single one of my paychecks? So yeah, that's what I do. And I started doing this in 2020, the pandemic. I feel like that's when a lot of people started online
Yeah.
business. For me, it was a time where I had just gone through a pretty surprising life event. In 2018, my parents got diagnosed with cancer pretty back to back, like January and then like March. And this kind of threw me for a loop just because at the time wasn't really like in a money journey. I was just like earning money and like it was like fun. And I was in my like mid 20s and I was like, I don't need to think about retirement. Like I have, $2,000, $3,000 saved. Life is good. What could possibly go wrong? And then that happened and I had to go home. I had to stop working and I feel like I was in a place where I, felt very unprepared, very financially vulnerable. And like at that moment, I promised myself, like, okay, this is never happening again. Thankfully, both my parents are recovered and they've been cancer free. But that experience really shaped me and really kind of shifted how I think about money. And so I literally went back home, did like a 360 of my finances, saved, invested, learned like how money works, like how do you build wealth? Because that was like the burning question is like, what do people do to like put their money to work? What does that even mean? And so, yeah, that kicked off my money journey in 2018, 2019. And then by 2020, I started my money coaching business. Yeah, that's a little bit about where I'm at or who I am.
Yeah, and I think this is perfect for my audience. So I am so excited to have you here. And for those that are new to me and for Andrea's audience, like my name is Jessica Rojas. I'm a leadership and career coach. So I help women growing in their career. So getting into their first leadership role where you are going from, maybe just leading projects or leading things or leading programs, but this is the first time that you are being seen as a leader. So a senior leader position, whether you or not you're leading people, but is like you are now a leader. This is where, you want to go from where you are right now to the next level. So whether that means you stay in that company, you get a promotion, or that means you're going somewhere else and getting a higher level role, helping them not only get the higher title, but also helping them get paid their worth, helping them negotiate their salary, helping them get that respect and authority that they deserve. So for like my story is a lot of this. So I help women to be able to do this without burning out and sacrificing their life to get there, because a lot of our stories and the women that burn out, a lot of that happened because you felt like that you needed to overprove or prove your worth
Mhm.
in these environments, especially when you're trying to grow your career. And that's what happened to me. A few years back, I was in an environment where I was with people in prestigious institutions and working with doctors, with executives, with scientists, and environment that I was the only Latina in that space. not only was I working harder to prove that I was capable, but it was a lot of like mind and mental health issues that I was dealing with because I needed to work harder, not just physically, but like mentally to belong in that space, to be worthy of being in that space, to proving that I was the right hire. And just
Mm,
feeling that responsibility of being the only Latina representing my culture in that space. It really caused me to like physically and mentally burn out and had to, go on medication and develop
mm,
anxiety and depression. And it was just like a really low for me that it made me have to reassess like, is this how I want to approach my career? Is this worth it for me? Is this what I'm willing to sacrifice for career success? And that is so like for my listeners, my key question is like, what do you refuse to sacrifice for your career? And what I learned is I refuse to sacrifice my mental health. I refuse to sacrifice my well being for growth. And
mm,
the moment that I changed that and I made like put me first and that a non negotiable is where I actually started growing in my career sustainably, making a lot more money. Finally, after leaving this position a year later, because I waited to do it strategically, I made my first six figures. I finally, had the work life balance that I deserve and learned that you can work smarter instead of harder. And now I help other women to do the same. I help them grow in their career sustainably, make more money, negotiate their
mm.
salary without having to overprove their worth and doing it without sacrificing everything else that they love in their life.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so important because I do think there is a little bit of a mindset that comes from I even saw it in me when I reflect back, but like just trying really or working really hard, pushing, really hard. And I remember my dad being like, always be the first one to get there. So your boss kind of like sees that. And I was like, okay. And I took that as like, oh, like I need to prove or I need to show like that I am working hard. So yeah, that's great. How do you navigate a career in a system that wasn't built for you, but navigate it in a way where you don't have to just always use hard work, but other ways to grow that actually allow you to live like a more full life.
Yes, yes. I mean, just in speaking about that, and I know that, we're talking about like money and your career, and a lot of women of color, we are taught that like more harder work, more hours equals more pay, equals more money. And that
Mhm.
in order for you to make more money, that means I need to work harder. In order for me to justify making more money, I need to prove it through like hard work versus maybe I'm in a level that now I'm working less, the kind of work I'm doing is requires more of my intelligence, more of my strategic thinking.
Mhm.
And that's why you're making more money. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of us like make a lot more money than our parents did, or at least like maybe our parents while we were growing up. And sometimes we feel guilty about that when we're like physical labor wise, I work less. Or maybe you're even working less hours than your parents did and you
Mhm.
make a lot more money than them. And then you feel that guilt like because it goes back to like I need to be physically like grinding in order to
Yeah.
earn the money that I make.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like another my dad has left me with these like liners, but like another thing that he said is like both my parents were like, you're gonna buy your car with el sudor de tu frente, like with the sweat off of your forehead. And I was like, it's going to be hard, right? Like I'm going to physically be tired making this money to buy my car. And here's the thing, like I think there is so much value to the immigrant grit that
Hmm.
comes in our lineage. Like it is the reason our parents like rebuilt an entire life in a different country. And so there is so much value and I feel like I have so much
Hmm.
respect for the people who came before us and the work that they did. And there is like a point where you're like, okay, this isn't the only path to like creating money or creating wealth. There is another way. And I think the job of our parents was to survive in a lot of ways, right? Like it was a new country, new language, new food, new system, new everything. Like their nervous systems
Hmm.
went into survival mode. Their biggest goal and job was survival. And I think if you're a child of immigrants, if you're first gen, your goal is a little different. And your
Hmm.
goal now becomes like, hey, your parents have survived. Like you've essentially made it, right? Especially if you're like, your immigrant parents came, you all immigrated here, you went to college, you did the whole American dream, quote unquote thing, and you're working and you have a salary, maybe you have a 401k. Your role or your job now is no longer survival, it's thriving. And the rules for
Mhm.
thriving are different, but it's hard to go like know that if like everything you've heard growing up is those survival advices like work really hard, like push yourself to be noticed, like prove that you don't rock the boat. Like all of these things are very much rooted in, hey, we're trying to like be grateful, stay hidden and like survive. And as we step into our own like adulthood and creating our own lives, it really has to now be like, hey, like I'm very thankful for what my parents have done. And like it's time for me to like upgrade how I even think about work and money. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you touched on so much because, yes, our job is to thrive, right? And then we have like that guilt of like,
Mm.
okay, my parents worked so hard and sacrificed so much, so I need to do well. And now you're bringing, like you said, you're bringing those stories into your career or into your life, like not just career, but life, right? Where everything requires blood, sweat, and tears for it to be for
Mhm.
you to like have earned it, for you to like show like, okay, well, I was taught that hard work ethic, which is amazing to be a hard worker, but hard work it doesn't mean you make more money. I mean, if that was the case, wouldn't like all the hardworking people be millionaires right now? And
Yeah.
not to say that people that are millionaires didn't work hard at some point in their life, but they got to a point where they were strategic about like, is this worth my energy and my time, or can I pay somebody else to do it? And, not going into that route, but just saying about like working harder doesn't equal that you are worthy of more money or that you are going to make more money. It is a good thing to have in the sense that you want to care about what you're doing. But at the same time, that's not what's going to help you to thrive because, yes, like one of the key things I see, especially like in the people that I coach, is that you get to a point where you're like, I've reached a level of success and I want to go to the next level. And that grind and that hustle got me here. So you think
Uh-huh.
that that's what you got to keep doing. But in order to get to the next level, that's what you need to start thinking like a leader. You need to start thinking like, if you're trying to grow your money, you need to start thinking like the
Uh-huh.
millionaire, like what
That I
are
was literally about to be
what are the
like, there
moves? What are the moves
the
they're doing? And it changes. It's different. That whole like grind for every dollar is not gonna
Mhm.
get you to the, C suite. It's not gonna get you to be a millionaire because that's where you need to think differently and do things differently. And I mean, even like for entrepreneurs, right? Like, you work really hard to make your first client and build that clientele and bring that like client success. But in order to scale, in order to get to the next level, you need to make changes, do things differently. And it doesn't mean you work more hours. It means you just change the way you approach things. And that's like the key thing that I feel like a lot of our community is not that they're missing, but is where you need to like unlearn the things that you learned that got you to a good place. And like you said, we respect and value and acknowledge that we are in a different position that our parents were, but we're no longer surviving. If we want to thrive, we need to do things differently.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be so valuable if, like, we kinda went off, like, you did 3, like, new, like, thriving rules to bring into the career place, and then I'll do, like, 3 thriving rules to bring into the money space with
Yeah.
your personal finances, just because I do think it's like, yes, there is, like, here's what we here's why it makes sense, right? Here's why this feels hard for us, or like it kind of feels like a push up
Hmm.
to like climb quote unquote the corporate ladder. But what are the things that like you have to change in the way that you think about hard work? What are the strategies? What are the tools? What are the mindset that kind of like upgrade you to, oh, okay, like if my role is to thrive, like what does that mean and what does that look like in the workplace?
Yeah. Okay. So like actually this like hits on like three of for like one of my frameworks, the three pillars to career growth, to sustainable career growth without burning out, without, sacrificing everything. It's money, visibility, and authority. So for the money, it's not just like translating, okay, you need to make more money. We understand that. But and I know that this is probably like closer to like your work is the value that you bring and learning how to add a monetary value to that is not a reflection of your worthiness, is a reflection of your work, right? So being
Mm,
comfortable with, I help make the company make X amount of money by the work that I did. Not that you are, I need to prove that I'm worthy of X amount of money, but just like detaching and neutralizing that and understanding like this is the work that I do and not just like the hours that I put, but my intelligence, my strategy, my work
Mhm.
help this company make X amount of money. And maybe not in many places you can translate that, but understanding just the value that you bring. And that's where I mean about like, that's where the negotiating comes into play, being comfortable with asking for what you're worth without it meaning that you need to work harder to get it. It's like your experience, your education, your like contribution, all that has a monetary value. It is like getting comfortable with understanding your self-worth. And that's like one of the key things that is going to help you to thrive because now I'm no longer thinking like I need to work 60 hours a week in order to justify making an extra 20 grand. Now I'm showing like, hey, I'm working
Mm,
my 40 hours a week, but these are the things that I'm doing. And these, like, looking from this year to last year, look at the increase and this like metric or this goal or these things that I did. I did things quicker. I finished things faster than like the other person and not just faster as in like I did it quickly, but like I was more strategic or I implemented something that increased the efficiency of it. So that's like around the money piece. And then the
mhm,
visibility is I'm going to be visible in the right rooms with the right people that are going to have an impact in my growth. So it's not like I'm going to take every opportunity so that everybody in the company
mm,
sees me, but I'm going to take the right opportunities that are aligned with my career growth and take the right projects that are going to help me showcase the value that I bring, that are going to put me in front of the people that are going to be decision makers. And one thing about like women of color, we have a hard time with visibility because it goes back to what we were taught. Put your head down and just show your worth through work. So it's like being in front of people, especially when you're in rooms that nobody looks like you, that's hard. So it's like, how can you like if it requires for you to do it, like practice and do it slowly, but you need to be in front of the right people in order to grow in your career because they're going to promote the person that they see is leading the work, not the person that is working the hardest in their desk. And at the end of the day, everyone's like, oh, she's so dependable. We can trust her. But she's not the person we think of when we think leading this new initiative. So that's like the visibility things. And the
mhm,
authority is changing yourself from being the doer to being a leader. Like if you think
mm.
about like people that lead, they're not the ones that have their hand in everything. They leverage their skill set. They leverage their skill set of influence, of leading, of being like the strategic planner, the one with the big picture, moving things forward, helping the team move from where they are to where they need to be. But they're not the ones they're not doing every analysis. They're not like doing every project. They're the ones helping the people lead those people that are doing it. So it's going from I need to be the doer to a leader. Because if you want to grow and you want to be a leader, you can't be doing your team's job. They need to do their job. You need to trust them, but also be there and be the right leader that they need so that they can grow and then you can grow.
Yeah, that's so good. It's like upgrading. Yeah, all of those things talk about like upgrading um kind of what we've learned about money, what we've learned about visibility, what we've learned about authority. Or not even I don't think if we learned anything about authority, but like what we've learned as like we got to be the worker bees versus like no, 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 you
Mhm.
got to like lead
Yeah,
in
and
some
that's the
capacity.
undoing. Yeah, because we're not taught because it isn't especially in those environments, especially like or at least for me, I grew up in South Central LA. And if you know anything or if you probably just know it from movies, it's not an environment that you want to be visible. It's not an environment that you want to be asserting your authority because that's unsafe for you. So if
Mhm.
you grew up in that, even like as a first gen living in this country, being visible and trying to like assert authority is not always for your best interest. So that's like for some of us, that's why it's so hard to get into that space. But like you said, it's like unlearning that like being visible and being confident, asserting my authority, and always in a way that it is authentic to you. Because that's like another thing, like when a person of color is more assertive, is more outspoken, depending on the rooms, depending on who that person is, and depending on the environment that can be taken out of context. And that's the reality of where we live and where we are in this society, but finding like what is that best approach for you, because like even between us, right, like the way that you can show your authority versus me can be different. And authority doesn't just mean like I'm gonna, show who I am and be respected, but it's just like, how do you lead? It's as simple as
Mhm.
how, like, what type of leader are you?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's also good. If I were to kind of think of the three things for the money space, I think that a lot of our community can be savers. Like I help a lot of like super savers. And so we have this so I think that for a lot of us, we have dealt with a lot of money scarcity, not necessarily because for some people it's like, okay, like, yes, like low income, like the idea of like money is going to run out was like present and your nervous system picked up on that. Or just like the way that you even interpreted, that season of your life, you kind of picked up like money's gonna run out. I know for me and my brother, we both like our first jobs out of college, like we went into like hyper saving mode. And it's so crazy because I didn't even know that until like 10 years later. I like just asked him, like, hey, tell me about like your first job. And he was like, yeah, this was my first thought. And I was like, shut up. Like, that was my first thought. Like, what in the world? Like, that's so crazy. And it was a big aha moment because it was like, we picked up in our childhood, like, money is going to run out. And so, again, going back to like that survival, the way that we fix money is going to run out is we like hoarded and saved money. Like, you save as much as possible because there's so much tied to your savings, right? There's so much safety tied to it. And so I think one of the things that I see in our community is that we have a tendency to like just like hoard a lot of money or save a lot of money. Some people, it's the opposite, or I'm talking like more specifically for the super savers. And there, you're kind of at some point, kind of like what you talked about, like what got you here won't get you there. What got you to creating a good sized emergency fund is not the thing that's going to help you create assets that grow in value. And so at that point, you have to upgrade the skill of saving and hoarding to how do we put our money to work? Like, what are the places that I can put my money in this account so that at the end of the year, I don't just have 10,000, I have 12,000. And then the next year, I have an extra 4,000. And then the next year, I have 5,000, right? And now, oh my gosh, like I've actually built a growing asset that produces 2,000 to 5,000 to $10,000 passively every single year for me and my household. And that's the first thing that we will have to like just kind of switch is like, hey, how do we go from like saving to be in survival and protective mode to actually like building wealth and putting our money to work. The second thing is like because we don't have a lot of like financial education, a lot of us are kind of just like money comes in, we pay the bills, we save a little and like we spend and maybe we overspend one month and it's okay, we make up for it cuz we don't save and we pay down the credit card. We're in this like cycle of like yeah, like things are okay. We're surviving, right? And that's like kind of what's happening even though we don't like consciously think of it, we are like the goal is like, hey, nothing's on fire, right?
Mhm.
But what we kind of want to do to go from like, hey, nothing's on fire to like, but I'm actually building a life with a life and outcomes that I want that are in the thriving space with every single one of my paychecks, right? And so this is like, hey, instead of just kind of like things are okay, nothing's on fire, why don't I treat my paychecks and my money like an actual resource that can create specific outcomes in my life that I just don't know are even possible for me yet. Like, for example, hey, I'm going to use a portion of my paycheck to have 6 months of living expenses saved up in the next 12 months. And I know I'm specifically going to hit that goal, or I'm going to send the right amount that I need to my investments so that when I have my maternity leave, I can actually take, 3 months or 6 months off, or even say, hey, the first year of my child's life, like I'm not going to work and my investments are going to sustain me without me draining all my accounts, right? It's like it's taking money and not just kind of like surviving, taking it and being like, "Oh, this is the life specifically I want to build. So let me use my money to do that." And it's like upgrading that skill of like, "Oh, we just need to save more," to like, "No, no, no. Like, what are we trying to create? What are the specific outcomes in your life you're trying to build with your money?" So that would be the second one. And I think the third one would be about debt. Our community is very adverse to debt. Like, we hate it. We hate debt. We hate interest. Almost like to the point where like I've heard a lot of like our parents, like immigrant parents, will pay off a house because they're just like, I don't like having debt. and it's very
Mhm.
common, but it debt is the number one wealth building tool in America. It is a financial tool that wealthy people are just not afraid of. They have learned how to use it strategically. And I think to some degree, like that is something that we also need to kind of expand into is like, hey, that is not good or bad. Like it's not morally good or morally bad to have debt. It just is a tool. And yes, like it could be a tool that's really expensive, or it could be a tool that you can strategically use, right? And so I think that a lot of times what happens is people get stuck in this, like, I just need to pay off debt. I just need to pay off debt. And you're sending all your cash to debt payoff when it's like, wait a second. Yes, we do want to be strategic about paying debt. And how do you start investing for retirement? Because your retirement and your future matters. And it actually is also really responsible for you to start that process so you don't have to depend on anyone else when you hit retirement.
Mhm.
How do you put your money to work? So you're not just like sending money to debt and kind of like, paying that off, but having no assets. How do you do both? So it's growing in the capacity to be like, okay, I'm not just going to panic and throw all my cash to debt, but how do I create a plan, pay this off, and build wealth? Because at the end of the day, assets working for me are only going to be helpful, even if I have debt.
Mhm.
So those would be like the three I feel like upgrades, and a lot of what I coach my clients on is just how do we change the rules and the narratives we've heard with money to kind of expand just like what we believe is possible.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on like so many things, like, the super savers, and it all stems from scarcity. And like some of us, me included, it was the opposite for me. It's like, let me spend my money because I don't know if it's going to be there tomorrow.
Mhm.
So I need to spend it now. And I mean, I struggled with a lot of that. And then, the debt, like, okay, well, I mean, in this country, you're given a credit card at 18. You're like, oh, yay. Let me get a Victoria's Secret. Let me get a Nordstrom, a Macy's. Like, okay, I grew up in LA where I, was surrounded by
Mm, mhm,
girls
mhm.
in my freshman year driving BMWs, and
Yeah.
well, I'm like, if you're trying to keep up with that. I remember one time I spent my dorm rent money on jeans. I was working at the time, so I made it up. So it wasn't like I'm irresponsible person, but it's like I had, you know, I had like my money from my scholarships and financial aid and stuff. And I was like, okay. And it was like you would pay for it monthly. So I had that like saved. And I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna get paid next week. Let me buy these like two pair of jeans. So I always talk about that story because it's just funny how like the things that you prioritize sometimes that in the grand scheme of things is not important, but a lot of times is the reason for the people that are the spenders and still coming from scarcity is because you want that like instant dopamine hit, something to fill like a void that you're having. So like it could be for those people growing up in low income communities. It could be like those two
Mhm.
different spectrums, the super saver, because like my mom is more the super saver that, had credit cards, but used it and paid it off. Used it and paid it off is more about like the building the credit and stuff versus me, use it, pay minimum payments, like that's how it was back then. But then obviously, I had to learn about, okay. And even like most recently in my 30s, learning about like investing beyond just a 401k, right? And
Mhm.
understanding, about high yield savings account and how if you're going to have your money saved, you might as well make that money work for you or things like that. But those are, like you said, things that are new to our community, or even like the debt and using it as leverage and using it as a tool instead of just using it to survive. And I think that that's like wise. Like for some of us, we think, oh, if I'm using this, it's because I need it to make ends meet until I get paid again. But what about like using it for like buying that house and low interest rate or, using it for like the points and then you're going to if you pay it off right away, now you got points for either travel or cash back or whatever it is. Or well, those are like little things that you can leverage like debt for, but like leveraging debt so that you can have multiple properties, leveraging debt for you to invest in something for your company or something for yourself or education or whatever it is. Like something that you said that for some people that they use debt and they don't have the same mind drama that we that we do. If you have, a person using debt as a tool and they're using it to buy properties versus another person, probably same financial circumstances with different money stories. One person, he's like, I sleep well. Like, I'm not worried about those, half a million or $1 million in debt that I am for those homes that I purchased because they know that the money's going to work for them or
Yeah.
that they used it strategically versus the
Yeah.
other person is like, I can't sleep at night because now I know that I owe this much money. And what if something happens? And what if this happens? And I'm
But
going to
I
be
don't think
like
that's
left
actually the
under a
problem.
bridge.
I don't really think that's actually the problem for our community because I think our community is really comfortable with mortgage debt because we see like, oh, like I'm
No
leveraging this
mortgage
debt
debt, but I'm
for
talking about investment properties.
right, which is like a
Oh, okay.
mortgage to like buy a building. Like I think we're really comfortable with like, hey, like I'm taking on debt, but I get a building, like I get a physical
Oh, okay.
property.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think that real estate makes a lot of sense to like immigrant communities. And so I think that is a great thing because real estate is like a wealth vehicle. I think
Mhm.
when I say leverage debt or like learn how to use debt strategically, more like, yes, talking about real estate, I'm talking more about like our relationship with credit card debt. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying like be willy nilly about credit card net, but I do think it is worth being like, hey, let's bring down the panic and the urgency to pay this off as fast as possible. Because what I see happening in our communities is let's say you are someone who like does lean towards like overspending and you're like, you put stuff on the card, you get paid, you send all your cash to bring the balance down, and you're stuck in this cycle where all of your cash as soon as you get paid gets thrown to your credit
Mhm.
card. And there is no cycle or plan to get this out, which goes back to like how are you strategically using your paychecks? And so
Mhm.
what happens is you spend years in this cycle of like, well, I put up my balance, I get paid my paycheck, I use most of my money to like bring down the balance down and then we reset. What doesn't happen in that cycle is we don't build wealth
Mhm.
because all of our money is being sent to like, I'm going to pay off this card. I'm going to pay off this card. I cannot hold it. People will say this all the time. Like, I use credit cards, but I pay off the balance every month. And I'm like, the goal isn't to pay off the balance every month. The goal is to pay off the balance and send some cash to wealth building. And so this is where it's like, oh, this is a different benchmark, right? The benchmark is not
Mhm.
just like survive and pay off your balance. It's like, yeah, of course. And we need to have cash left over to build wealth, to start investing for retirement, to start investing beyond retirement, to build our financial security and financial safety net. And I think that's where it's like, oh, in order to get out of the cycle, we have to deprioritize debt and say, hey,
Mhm.
we're not aggressively pay this off to start building assets. And we have to just sit with the tension of like, hey, debt is not first. It's not even second. It's going to be the third thing on our priority. Because what we're going to do first is we're going to save and build our emergency fund, first saving.
Mhm.
Then we're going to make sure we're set up and good for retirement, especially if we haven't started and we're in like mid to late 30s. And then we're going to pay off the credit card. And that for people is really hard because we've been taught, hey, if you're holding that, you have to pay it off. You can't pay interest. And we get stuck in this cycle where we're always just using our paycheck money to like pay off this balance, but we never have any cash left over to build wealth. And this
Yeah.
is where it's like, oh, we actually need, if you're stuck in the cycle of like, hey, all I do with my paychecks is pay off my card and then reset, we have to be like, okay, one, in order to upgrade this is I now can't just prioritize paying off this card. I need to prioritize paying off this card and building wealth. And that process is going to mean I might not pay it off in full. And I have to sit with, we're going to carry over this balance. But the purpose of that is we now have cash to build wealth. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
No, it does. No. And like what you touched there is that like the relationship you have with debt. And I know that you said that those were like the part of the three things that, or I mean, all of these things are part of the three things that you mentioned. But the relationship with debt needs to shift. And then the relationship with investing needs to shift because
Mm-hmm.
even when you're saying that, you're like, okay, now I'm teaching my, community, I'm teaching them how to normalize debt and how to be okay with like, that's not going to come and, kill you from the screen. Having the debt or like not paying the whole balance isn't the end of the world. But now you also need to, and this is exactly like your bread and butter, right? Now you need to like normalize putting money into the stock market, which, for our community is not normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or they're not comfortable with that idea is like,
Not
what if the
common.
market crashes? What if because you're like, I have no control, or I hear these stories, or we're in a war in Iran right now, like all these things, right? So it's just so many different like areas, like that it sounds like for you that you need to coach people on because all of this is like ingrained conditioning. Now you're telling me I shouldn't pay off my full balance and I should
In
also
order
put
to
money
prioritize, yeah,
exactly in order to prioritize putting money in the market,
but
which
I'm scared of doing that. Right. So
yes.
it is
Yeah.
really a completely, like, changing how you think
Mhm.
about money, right? Because it's like, "Hey, we're," and again, I wanna communicate, I wanna be abundantly clear. I'm not saying, like, don't pay off your credit
Of
cards, right?
course, of
I do
course.
think
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah.
like this is one of the most expensive debts that you can hold. So if you're gonna hold it, let's be strategic and build assets. And we are gonna
Mhm.
pay it down and we are gonna eliminate it and we are gonna pay the least amount of interest, but we are going to do it not from panic and urgency, but from strategy and purpose. Like, hey, I am
Yeah.
doing this to do all of these things. But it does take like a completely shifting your relationship with debt and how you like use it, changing your relationship to the stock market and like, hey, like what is
Mhm.
myth and what is truth, right? What is based on
Mhm.
data and what is based on just like fear in our community? And then like seeing your paychecks as an actual resource that you can use to actually create like a super meaningful and specific life that you see for yourself. And once you upgrade all of those three things, you start seeing like, oh, money is actually a really powerful resource. I know how to use it
Mhm.
strategically. I know how to leverage debt. I know how to create specific outcomes. And my life just, I get to be supported from financial systems, not just a savings account, not just a
Mhm.
$0
Mhm.
credit card. I've created an infrastructure that no matter what happens, like I'm good. I think going back to my story, this is why it feels so meaningful because I was like, I didn't have any infrastructure. I didn't have any systems. I had $3,000 in my savings and like a $0 credit card balance. And those are my two financial tools. And I was like, I need more tools. I need a brokerage account, just like a fortress of like, whatever happens, like I know I'm going to be good. I know like I can handle it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and what I wanted to point out is if you're not following her, please go. We will put it on the show notes. But one of the things I love is how you for a visual learner like me, how you
Mhm.
like show us that. And that's one of the things I love about following you. It's like just seeing how I think most recently you posted how you haven't put money back, you haven't like contributed to your retire, or I don't know if it's retirement fund or an investment fund,
I
and
one
how in the past few months it's grown without you putting any more money in it. And not to say that, I'm sure you plan on putting more money in it eventually, but just showing that this is me not doing anything and how much is grown because of that system that you put in place.
yeah.
And that's what I think, me included. I mean, I've always invested in my 401k, but that was as much as I did anything else. Like it just sounded a little scary. I mean, now I do, but
Mhm.
it was one of the things that, like learning about the longer the money sits and compound interest, and you get to a point that you're not even contributing and it's like growing a lot more than you're putting in, because when you just hear all these stories about the market and what's going on and like the economy, and if we're in a recession, then you freak out about like putting your money in the market and thinking that maybe it's just gonna all just be gone. But I
Mhm.
love like how you said like since you started investing and how much has grown, and you like actually show people like, hey, look, like the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also have a lot of, like, compassion and grace for, like it's confusing on purpose, right? Like, wealth and the stock market is purposely confusing. I mean, we can go into, like, conspiracy theories, but, like, you guys at Wall Street did not make this simple, and it kind of begs the question,
Of
like, "Oh, I
course.
wonder why," you know? And so if you're confused, it doesn't mean you're incompetent or not smart enough or you need to be better at math. It just means like, yeah, it's intentionally confusing. And so I have a big passion for like, hey, the stock market is one of the biggest financial tools available, and I want my community to feel comfortable using it. Yeah, I'm a huge visual learner. So if you like pictures, or you like things like especially concepts that kind of feel a little arbitrary, broken down into like, okay, this is what we're talking about. Yeah, that is my jam. I know we're kind of like inching into just because having conversations about money and career. I feel
No,
like
it's
it'd
okay.
always be great. But something that I think we would be so good to talk about that I think is always a fun question for like a money coach and a career coach. Like it almost is like the which came first, the chicken or the egg? When it comes to like someone's like, all right, like I want to get my money together. Should I focus on making more money or should I focus on like my personal finances and my money strategy? Obviously, I think we are going to have different angles at which we come at them from, but I think it would be so fun to like just share our perspectives on that.
Yeah, well, for me, I think that if you can start, because I don't think there is just one, and I don't think one is,
Mhm.
before the other. But what is something that you can do in your control? Well, hopefully, that if you're strategic, then you can do in your control is make more money. Because before you want to do the side hustle, before you want to like do anything else, like, can I make more money? Because that already is like, you don't have to do a lot more. You don't have to put in more hours. You just need to either negotiate. And by negotiating, you're going to look at, let me see everything I've already done. Let me collect all my receipts. Let me show that, hey, this is how much I've helped the company. This is the improvements, the, increases or whatever, because oftentimes you are underpaid. Because if you don't negotiate,
Yeah.
100% you're underpaid. If you did not negotiate your salary, you are underpaid. So that is one thing that you don't even have to do anything else to make more money in that sense if you can negotiate your salary or get a job that pays you more money. But I don't think that there is that like that's the only and now you're going to be financially, in a better place because now you have more money. And that's where like for me and I'm not a financial expert, but the advice that I give is like, okay, now you make more money. Don't go on living. Now I can upgrade my lifestyle, but how can you use that money to like let's just pretend I'm not making those extra 10,000, extra 20,000. How can I use those extra 20,000 to improve my financial security? And that's where the challenge is if you're not working on your personal finances, that's where that could be that trap that and I can tell you from experience that I have had that situation where now I'm making $30,000 more and I'm like, in my mind, well, I make more money now. Let me go spend more. Let me go buy more. Let me live in a more expensive community because now I'm making more money. And that's a trap that I had to learn the hard way. But that's like what a lot of people experience is the more money I make, then upgrade my lifestyle. So that's where like I think the working hand in hand work, with your career coach to get the higher paying job. And now that I do have more money, work with your personal financing money coach to make sure that I'm making that money grow and make work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for me, obviously, like I see it through the money lens. And my first job out of college, I was making $22,000 a year. Now, the move there should have been, let's get another job, Andrea. Let's make more money. But I didn't start there because I was like, all right, what are my paychecks? What are my bills? What do I need to like live my life and survive, get gas, groceries, and like, eat out a couple times? What can I save from this paycheck? That exercise gave me a number of like, oh, I can only save this much. Okay. I can make that work for a couple. Like I had low expenses, lived in a college town. So I was able to make it work. But I think it is so important to start with like, how much money do you need? Right. Because I feel like we a lot of times are like, oh, I just need to make more. And when it's like, okay, what is more? Is more like $500 more a month? Is it 1,000? Is it 2,000? And then what are you going to use that money for? Right. So I think it's always good to kind of start with like specifics. Like, I want everyone to make more money for sure. And I do think that is like a
Mhm.
big part of the equation. But if you don't have a system for that more money to come, it is going to just kind of feel like it came and it left, it came and it left. And then you'll always feel like you're like in this cycle, right? This is where it's like you could make 30,000 and then 60,000, then 100,000, then 150,000 and still feel like I don't have enough, right? You
Mhm.
will feel like you have enough when you tangibly look at your numbers and you're like, okay, this is what's coming in, this is what's going out, this is what I'm using to build wealth. Here's what I want for my life, right? Like I want to be able to like live in this community that I wanted to. In order to do that, I need to increase my income to like, take home $7,000. What is that salary band? Oh, okay. I don't just need more money. I need this much in my salary. That's a much more, I feel like when you talk about like business value and like, or not business value, like value you bring to the market value and like personal value and like confidence and your self concept when you bring yourself to interviews, knowing why you actually need the number because it's going to make this financial impact in your life so you can be able to do these things in your future, I think prepares you so much more for that conversation. Cause now it's not like, oh, I just want more money. It's like, no, no, no. This is the next step in my career. This is why I want this. This is why this is going to be so meaningful to me. This is why it's going to be so important. And so I think it's like, we want to start there and then yes. Now, my advice for for me when I was like making $22,000 a year, I would have been like, you need to make more.
Yeah,
It's great that you ran
we
the
can
numbers,
expand
but
on that.
like it was kind of like a hey, this is urgent and you need to do that. But for a lot of us, like we're not there. Most of us are like making it work. So it is good to like start there. Like you said, like there's no universal this one first and then this one. But I
Hmm.
would say like I think for most of us, there's so much wisdom and understanding and knowledge that we can get from like let's thoroughly look at our numbers and then like let that inform like what it is that we want to make and how we want to move forward, create a system. So when more money comes, like it's actually going to the right places. And then there is that, like, hey, the fastest way to just like get yourself out of paycheck to paycheck or survival is just, oh, okay, more is coming in. Right.
Yeah.
So it really just kind of depends like where you're at. But yeah, that's my take. But I think
Yes.
it's like you said, like a blend of both depending on where you're at.
Yeah, and what you said about knowing your numbers, that is so important for like everything or just like it's kind of like also knowing your why.
Hmm.
In career, knowing your why you're going into things, knowing your number like you were saying when you are going to negotiating, that is what helps you have that confidence.
Hmm.
And that's what like the exercise that I do with my clients is like understanding, okay, where are you right now? Look at the market and not like where are you based on what you know your job says that you like their pay range or whatever. But like look at what you're doing, your job description, the market and everything. And right there you're gonna know like whether or not you are getting paid what you should be getting paid for the work that you do, for your experience, for your market value. And that is exactly what helps you be confident. And
Hmm.
just like you said, knowing that number is also what helps you like know the why do I need those extra 10,000, extra 5,000, extra and then, you can make the decision, okay, I either negotiate my salary or I get a higher paying job. If that still doesn't get me to the number that I need, okay, what are other things that I need to do to get to that number? And, whether that's investing and then the interest or whatever, that's going to get you closer to that number. Or whether that means then, yes, like I'm not anti side hustle. I have a business and a career. So I'm totally for that as well. But then you make the decision that's right for you for the number that you need for your why.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Yeah.
I love having this combo.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, I've loved this conversation and I know we can go hours and hours in this topic when it comes to like career and money. I feel like, especially,
No,
I'm like
anytime,
passionate about my lane and you're passionate about yours. So,
yeah, anytime
but
anyone
yeah,
wants to talk to me about my money, I'm like, yes, let's chat. Like sometimes my friends are so like nice. They're like, I know. Is it okay if I ask you? I'm like, please. I love talking about money. Tell me, let's talk. But yeah, where can people follow you if they're interested
yes.
in learning from you about career? Yeah, share where
Yes.
they can connect with you.
Yeah, my main platform is Instagram. So you can find me at Jessica Lynn Rojas. You could also find me on LinkedIn, Jessica Lynn Rojas as well. And I work one on one with clients. We work for 3 months and I help you either get that promotion, that next level role, help you with the race. And it's always specifically of what you need and personalized to you. And sometimes we can go longer than the 3 months, depending on what it is that you need. But that's how you can get a hold of me and work with me. And I'm excited for you to be in my world.
Cool. And then if you would like to connect with me, I am active on Instagram. My Instagram is at building.gen.wealth. And I also work one on one with clients. It's a 4 month container that really kind of helps you get it really clear and specific with your paycheck so that you are able to build wealth, pay off debt, and really build the financial systems that you need to feel secure walking into the future. Whether it's like setting yourself up for retirement, making sure your kids are taken care of, making sure your immigrant parents, you can help them in the ways you want to. You just will believe with the systems in place that make your future just feel more certain versus like, I hope we're good. So yeah, that is
And
a
yeah,
little bit about
we don't want to just stick to like pray and hope we're good.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, this was such a great convo and I enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you. Career baddies. Growing your career and getting paid what you're worth should be happening at the same time. That's the goal. You shouldn't be waiting years for your pay to catch up to your work you're already doing, and you shouldn't have to keep proving yourself just to be taken seriously. And if you're ready to close that gap, that's where I come in. Inside my one-on-one coaching, we focus on 3 things. First, your money, what you should actually be earning right now based on the level you're operating at, and how to ask for it without second-guessing yourself. Second, your visibility, making sure the right people actually know what you're doing and the impact you're having so your work doesn't just float in the background. And third, your authority. How are you showing up in these meetings, how you talk about your work, and how you take up space so people don't overlook you when decisions are being made. So it's not just you working harder hoping it turns into more. It's your work, your name, and your pay finally lining up. If that's what you want, DM me on Instagram at Jessica Lynn Rojas or book a sales call at jessicalynn-wellness.com/scheduling. If you want more of this straight to your inbox, join my email community, Dear Ambitious Women of Color. Link is in the show notes. Take care of yourself, career baddies. Vamonos.